I have been dealing with an issue in my marriage for quite some time now. My husband, Dean, 36, male, has this habit of giving away my belongings without asking me first. It started with small things like extra kitchen utensils or duplicate cleaning supplies. His reasoning was always the same. We don't need two of everything. At first, I did not think much of it. I assumed he was just trying to declutter and let it go. But over time, it became clear that it wasn't about decluttering. It was about him deciding unilaterally what we needed and what we did not. The first time it really bothered me was when he gave away one of my coats to his sister, Lana, 40, female. It wasn't just any coat. It was a gift from my late grandmother. When I confronted him, he acted like I was being dramatic. He said Lana needed a warm coat, and since I had more than one, it made sense to give her the extra. I was upset, but I let it slide, and then it happened again and again. He gave away my second blender, even though I used it regularly. He gave away my extra set of bed sheets, even though I liked to have spares. He gave away a pair of my boots that I had barely worn. Every time I called him out on it, he would act like I was being unreasonable. He always said, "We do not need two of everything," as if that justified him making decisions for me. It became worse when our son, Cody, 5, male, was involved. Dean started giving away some of Cody's toys, claiming he had too many. I noticed that it was always the toys I had picked out for Cody, never the ones Dean had bought. When I pointed that out, he shrugged it off. One day I came home to find that my second set of pots and pans were missing. When I asked Dean, he casually mentioned that he had given them to Lana. That was the last straw for me. If he could just take my things and give them away without my permission, then I could do the same. I started small. One of Dean's expensive watches went missing. He noticed but assumed he had misplaced it. Then one of his gaming controllers was gone. Next, a few of his gadgets disappeared. When he asked me, I said maybe he just had too many of them. Maybe someone else needed them more than we did. I took some of his prized gaming equipment and donated it to Lana's charity. She runs a small organization that helps underprivileged kids, and they were more than happy to receive a high-end gaming console. I also donated some of his smart home gadgets. He had duplicates of everything. Extra smart speakers, extra headphones, extra keyboards. It was only fair, right? We did not need two of everything. Over the next few days, I noticed he started checking his stuff more frequently. He counted his watches, his gaming accessories, and his electronics. He never did that before. I could tell he was nervous about losing more things. Good. Maybe he would think twice before giving away something that did not belong to him. A week later, he finally broke his silence. He told me he wanted to talk. I thought we were just going to talk. He started having a full-blown meltdown, pacing back and forth, yelling about how I had ruined everything. I just sat there and let him rant. It was almost amusing to see him react this way, considering how many times I had told him how it felt to have many things taken without my consent. He kept going on and on about how unfair it was, how expensive everything was, how he had worked hard for those things, except he did not work. He hadn't had a job in years. He had all the time in the world to play games while I worked and took care of Cody. Then came the threats. Dean said he wanted a divorce. He said if I didn't replace everything I had given away, he would leave. He expected me to panic, to beg him to stay, to agree to his demands. But what he did not know was that I had already made my decision long before this. I had been planning to divorce him anyway. This was just the final push I needed. Dean did not help with Cody. He never lifted a finger around the house. He did not contribute financially. He was a man-child who expected me to do everything while he sat around playing video games and making excuses for why he couldn't get a job. I was done with it. I had been done for a while. I didn't argue. I didn't fight back. Instead, I simply pulled out my phone and sent a message to his entire family. I forwarded them the donation receipts in Dean's name, making sure they all saw just how generous he had been. Lana, of course, was thrilled. She called him right away, gushing about how proud she was that he had made such a meaningful contribution to her charity. Other family members chimed in, praising him for his generosity, calling him selfless. Dean's face turned red. He stammered, trying to explain that he hadn't actually donated those things willingly, but he quickly realized how bad it would look if he admitted the truth. If he told them he had been tricked, it would ruin the reputation he had built up as the giving one in the family. Complaining now would make him look selfish. He was trapped. For the next few days, he sulked around the house, barely speaking to me. He kept muttering under his breath, clearly trying to come up with a way to fix this. But there was no fixing it. His expensive toys were gone, and there was nothing he could do about it. Eventually, he tried to bargain. He said we could start fresh, that he would stop giving away my things if I replaced his. I laughed at the audacity. The only fresh start I was interested in was one without him in it. I started making my plans. I met with a lawyer. I started setting money aside, and I began thinking about what life would look like without Dean weighing me down. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew he would fight it, but I also knew I couldn't keep living like this. The day I told him I was filing for divorce, he looked shocked, like he had never expected me to go through with it. He tried to argue, tried to make excuses, but I did not care anymore. I was done. Done with the laziness, the entitlement, the manipulation. Done with being married to a man who acted more like a spoiled child than a husband. So now, here I am, preparing for the next chapter of my life. I don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but I do know one thing: I won't miss him, not one bit. So, AITA for donating my husband's expensive belongings to his sister's charity after he repeatedly gave away my things and then refused to replace them when he had a meltdown over it. Update 1. For a while, Dean wasn't taking me seriously. He thought I was just upset when I brought up divorce. But a few days back, I made it clear that I have already filed for divorce, and he needs to get a lawyer as well. Dean completely lost it. The moment he realized I was serious about leaving, he went from rage to desperation. He tried everything, accusing me of overreacting, calling me selfish, even claiming I was ruining our family over something as small as giving things away. But when none of that worked, he switched tactics. He started love-bombing me, promising to change and to be a better husband, to put our family first. I wasn't falling for it. Then came the guilt tripping. He told Cody I was taking him away from Daddy in an attempt to make me feel bad. That backfired when Cody, being 5 and not fully understanding the situation, just asked if that meant he wouldn't have to clean up after his dad anymore. That shut Dean up real quick. Lana, of course, inserted herself into everything. She called me a monster and told me I was selfish and cruel for humiliating Dean by making him look like a fool in front of their family. When I told her that I did not care and that she was welcome to take care of her brother if she was so worried, she suddenly had nothing to say. Funny how that works. Dean's meltdown escalated. He sent long, rambling texts about how I was ruining his life and how he gave me everything, which was laughable considering he never worked a day in our marriage. He even showed up at my workplace one day, crying about how he did not want to lose me. Security had to escort him out. It was beyond embarrassing. Then he started threatening to fight me for full custody of Cody, saying he'd make sure I never saw our son again. That was the last straw. I got a lawyer involved immediately. Dean did not have a job, a stable income, or any proof that he could take care of Cody. His threats held no weight, but I still made sure I had everything documented. The moment he realized he did not have a leg to stand on, he switched back to begging. The divorce process has been exhausting, but I feel lighter already. Cody and I are in a temporary apartment while everything gets settled. And for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. No more finding my things missing. No more dealing with a man-child who refuses to lift a finger. No more being gaslit into thinking I was the problem. Dean is still floundering, trying to control the narrative. But his family isn't as supportive as he expected. Now that they realize I was the one keeping everything together, some of them have gone radio silent. Even Lana isn't as vocal anymore. But of course, Dean wasn't going to let it go that easily. He started posting vague, dramatic messages online about betrayal and being used, without mentioning me directly. But it was obvious who he was talking about. His last-ditch effort was to send mutual friends my way, trying to get them to talk me into reconsidering. None of it worked. I was done. Meanwhile, Cody has been adjusting surprisingly well. He's been more relaxed, less anxious, and doesn't seem to miss the tension that was always in the house. He still asks about Dean, but not in the way I expected. More like he's relieved to be in a quieter, calmer home. I've been making sure he knows he's loved and safe, and I refuse to let Dean use him as a pawn. A week ago, Dean tried to show up at our new place. I didn't let him in. He stood outside yelling about how I was destroying his life. But when I told him I'd call the police, he left. It's clear he still thinks he can somehow manipulate me into coming back, but that ship has sailed. Legal battle is still ongoing, but my lawyer says things are looking in my favor. Dean's lack of employment and history of irresponsible behavior is not helping his case. He's still trying to play the devoted father card, but it's laughable when he barely spent any time with Cody before all of this. Lana has been quiet lately. I think she realized that all her yelling and insults haven't changed a thing. The rest of Dean's family is either taking his side or staying out of it. But it doesn't matter. I'm done trying to please people who never had my best interests at heart. At this point, I just want everything finalized so I can fully move on. I know Dean is going to keep trying to make things difficult, but honestly, he's just making a fool of himself. The more he fights, the worse he looks. Cody and I are building something new, something stable, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I have control over my own life. No more compromises, no more walking on eggshells, just freedom. Update 2. Dean's meltdown did not stop after I refused to let him in. If anything, it escalated. He started calling me at all hours, leaving long, rambling voicemails about how I was ruining his life and how Cody needs his father. When I blocked his number, he used other people's phones to try and reach me. When that did not work, he started showing up at places he thought I might be. Cody's school, my workplace, even the grocery store. It was like he couldn't accept that this was really happening. I filed a restraining order. I had all the proof I needed, his constant harassment, the way he had already tried to intimidate me, and the fact that he had no real reason to be following me around like this. The court granted it quickly, and that seemed to be the first real wake-up call for him. He finally backed off, though not before making a big scene about how I was turning his own son against him. Lana, of course, had to get involved again. She messaged me, furious, saying I was going too far and that I was ruining Dean's reputation, as if I cared. She also tried to claim that Dean was trying his best and that I was being cruel by keeping Cody away from him. I told her that if Dean wanted to be a father so badly, he should have acted like one before now. She did not have a response to that. The legal side of things has been moving forward. Dean finally got himself a lawyer, one who immediately advised him to stop making a fool of himself online. His dramatic posts about betrayal and being used had only made things worse for him. A lot of people who initially took his side started backing off once they saw just how unhinged he was acting. Even some of his own family members quietly started reaching out to me, offering support. They did not outright say they were on my side, but they did not defend him either. Cody has been doing well, which is the most important thing to me. He still asks about Dean, but mostly in a casual way, like he doesn't quite understand why everything has changed. I've been honest with him in an age-appropriate way, making sure he knows that none of this is his fault. He seems happier, though. There's no more tension in the house, no more waiting for his dad to finally pay attention to him. He's been sleeping better, laughing more. That alone tells me I made the right choice. The funniest part? Dean has been trying to paint himself as the victim, but it's not working. People are seeing through him. Without me to take care of everything, his life has started to fall apart. He's struggling financially, and from what I've heard, he's still jobless. He tried moving back in with Lana, but even she wasn't willing to deal with him full time. Last I heard, he was couch surfing between friends and family members, all of whom are getting increasingly fed up with him. He still thinks he can guilt me into taking him back. A few days ago, I got a letter from him, a handwritten one, because he couldn't text or call me anymore. It was full of the usual nonsense, how he misses us, how he knows he messed up, how he just wants another chance to make things right. I did not respond. I'm not falling for it. At this point, I just want everything finalized. My lawyer says it shouldn't be much longer now. Dean is still trying to fight for joint custody, but with no job and no stable home, his history of irresponsible behavior, he doesn't have much of a case. I am fully prepared for whatever last-minute stunt he tries to pull, but I also know it won't work. I've come too far to back down now. Cody and I are finally building a life where we do not have to walk on eggshells, a life where we are prioritized, not just an afterthought. And I refuse to let Dean take that away from us. And the best part? I don't even feel guilty anymore, just relieved. Update 3. Dean did not stay quiet for long. After realizing I wasn't going to respond to his letter, he took things to the next level. He started showing up at my workplace, standing outside in his car and waiting for me to leave. He did not try to come inside, but it was obvious he wanted me to notice him. My co-workers started asking if everything was okay, and I had to explain that I was in the middle of a messy divorce. It was humiliating, but I refused to let him intimidate me. Then he started contacting mutual friends, spinning stories about how I was turning Cody against him. He claimed I was poisoning our son's mind and making sure he forgot his father. A few of them actually reached out, telling me they were worried that I wasn't being fair to Dean. I shut that down immediately. I wasn't the one who had neglected Cody for years while he played video games all day. I wasn't the one who had dismissed my concerns, refused to get a job, and treated me like an ATM. I had nothing to prove to anyone, but the real escalation came when he filed a motion to get joint custody. My lawyer wasn't surprised, but I was furious. Dean had no job, no stable home, and no real involvement in Cody's life. Yet, he had the audacity to demand joint custody as if he had been a present responsible parent. My lawyer assured me that the courts would see through his act, but it still made me anxious. I did not want Cody to be dragged into some ridiculous battle just because Dean refused to accept reality. Lana, of course, had to involve herself again. She sent me a long, self-righteous message about how children need both parents and that I was being spiteful for keeping Cody away. It took everything in me not to laugh. Where was this energy? Where was this energy when Dean was dumping all the parenting responsibilities on me? Where was her concern when I was struggling alone, picking up his slack while he wasted his days away? I ignored her, just like I ignored Dean. The court date was set, and in the meantime, Dean's desperation grew. He started making dramatic posts online again, but this time they were a mix of self-pity and rage. One day he was claiming he was completely broken without his family. Next, he was ranting about how I had manipulated the situation and stolen Cody from him. He even posted some old photos of us trying to paint the picture that we had been happy before I turned on him. It was embarrassing, but I refused to engage. Then he made the biggest mistake yet. He showed up at Cody's school. I got a call from the principal letting me know that Dean had come by during pickup time, trying to see Cody. He wasn't on the approved list, thanks to the restraining order, so the staff did not let him in. Apparently, he caused a scene in the parking lot, arguing with security guards and demanding to see his son. I had to rush over and make sure everything was okay. Cody was confused, but thankfully not too shaken. I, on the other hand, was livid. My lawyer wasted no time bringing this up in court. Dean's actions only made my case stronger. His instability, his reckless behavior, it all worked against him. Even the judge seemed unimpressed with his sudden interest in fatherhood. I had plenty of proof that Dean had never been involved before now, and his erratic behavior in recent weeks only solidified that. The custody hearing is coming up soon. I know I have a strong case, but I also know Dean isn't done causing trouble. He's too prideful to accept that he's lost. And I do not know what his next move will be, but I am ready for it. Update 4. Dean wasn't done causing trouble. Just when I thought I had seen the worst of his antics, I discovered something that left me speechless. For years, he had cried, broke, insisting we had to be careful with money. He always made me pay for everything: rent, groceries, Cody's school fees, vacations, medical bills. Every single expense fell on my shoulders while he sat around playing video games and refusing to get a job. I assumed he was just lazy and irresponsible, but I was wrong. Dean had money, a lot of money. I found out through sheer accident. I was organizing some paperwork with my lawyer, preparing for the next step in the divorce, when a financial document came up that did not match what I knew about Dean's income, or lack thereof. My lawyer took a closer look, and that's when the truth came spilling out. Dean came from generational wealth. His family had a massive trust fund set up for him, investments and multiple properties under his name, and yet he had never contributed a dime to our household. I sat there in shock, realizing that the man who had constantly told me we couldn't afford certain things had been sitting on a mountain of wealth the entire time. The man who let me struggle to keep us afloat while he refused to lift a finger had access to money that could have made things easier for all of us. Worse, he had let me believe I was the unreasonable one for expecting help. He had gaslit me into thinking we were barely scraping by, that I was too demanding when I asked him to get a job, that I was selfish for wanting even the smallest luxuries. Meanwhile, he had financial security that he had chosen to hoard for himself. I was beyond furious, not just because of the money, but because of what it meant. It meant that he had never actually needed me. He had let me believe I was the sole provider, let me exhaust myself working extra hours and budgeting down to the last dollar, all while he sat back and did nothing. He had been playing the role of a struggling husband while secretly being set for life. It also explained his family's behavior. Lana's entitlement, her insistence that I owed them things, her constant judgment. It all made sense now. They weren't just greedy. They were used to getting whatever they wanted without ever working for it. They saw me as a convenient resource, someone to drain until I had nothing left to give. I wasted no time making sure this information was included in the divorce proceedings. My lawyer was already drafting up paperwork to demand a full financial disclosure. Dean had hidden this for years, but he wouldn't be able to anymore. When I confronted him about it, he had the nerve to act offended. He tried to play it off like it wasn't that much and that he did not see the point in using his family's money. He actually had the audacity to say he wanted to build something on his own, as if mooching off me while playing video games all day was some noble, self-made journey. Now, the divorce is moving forward with a new level of intensity. Dean is panicking because he knows this changes everything. He can no longer claim to be financially dependent on me. He can no longer play the victim, and he knows that the more people find out about his hidden wealth, the worse it looks for him. Lana, of course, had to chime in again. She sent a long, angry email about how I was ruining Dean's life, that I was trying to bleed him dry. I did not even bother responding. The irony was too much. They had been bleeding me dry for years, and now that the tables had turned, they couldn't handle it. Dean still thinks he can get out of this mess with his reputation intact, but that ship has sailed. The truth is out, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I finally have the upper hand. Update 5. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I got a message from an unknown number. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was spam, but something about it felt different. The person knew my name. They mentioned Dean, and they seemed desperate to talk to me. I finally replied, and what I found out made my stomach turn. Dean had been cheating on me, not just recently. This had been going on for a while. The woman messaging me was his mistress. She was a college student, much younger than he, and she had no idea he was married. She told me that she had only just found out about me, and she was disgusted. She said she felt sick knowing she had been with a married man. She apologized over and over, saying she never would have been with him if she had known. I didn't blame her. She had been lied to, just like I had. But then she told me something even worse. The things Dean had been giving away, the ones he told me were for his family, they weren't going to Lana or his relatives at all. They were for her. Lana was actively covering for Dean. He had been stealing from our home and giving everything to her. The gaming consoles, the electronics, the expensive things that I bought, he had been packing them up and sending them to his mistress. And that wasn't all. Dean had been supporting her financially. All these years he told me he was broke. He made me pay for everything, our rent, our groceries, our son's school fees. He told me we couldn't afford vacations. He made me feel guilty for buying myself little things, even though I was the only one working. But somehow he had enough money to send to her. She told me he had been paying her rent. He had helped with her tuition. He had sent her money whenever she needed it. The money he refused to spend on our son, he was giving it to another woman. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like my whole marriage had been a lie. Everything suddenly made sense. His constant talk about getting rid of extra things, his push to declutter, his attitude whenever I asked where certain things had gone. He hadn't been trying to clean up. He had been stealing from me. The worst part? He let me struggle while he played the role of a generous boyfriend to someone else. He let me work long hours, come home exhausted, and still take care of Cody all by myself. He let me believe that I had no choice but to be the responsible one, while he spent my money on another woman. I felt sick. The woman told me she had proof. Screenshots, bank transfers, messages. She sent me everything. She wanted nothing to do with him anymore. She was just as angry as I was. She had been played too. I sent everything to my lawyer immediately. Dean has no idea what's coming. Dean's lies finally caught up to him, and I am not the one suffering for it this time. The divorce is moving forward, and now that I know about his secret wealth and cheating, things are only getting worse for him. My lawyer is making sure he doesn't get away with anything. He spent years using me, lying to me, letting me carry all the weight while he did nothing. Now he's the one losing everything. Dean is panicking. He's trying to act like none of this is a big deal, but he knows he messed up. He's lost control of the situation, and he can't play the victim anymore. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.